महाराष्ट्र बाल अधिकार आयोग आणि आंतरराष्ट्रीय न्याय मिशन यांनी बाल शिक्षण व आरोग्य संबंधित कोरोना व्हायरस लक्षात ठेवून कशी व्यवस्था केली पाहिजे त्याबद्दल वेबिनार आणि प्रश्नोत्तरी घेतले होते. हे अगदी प्रशंसनीय आहे आणि ह्याची अगदी आवश्यकता पण आहे. बाल संरक्षण संस्थांना त्यामुळे योग्य मार्गदर्शन मिळेल अशी माझी अपेक्षा आहे. Our responsibilities to our children. A proper implementation of the Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2015, Bal Nyaya Adhiniyam 2015 requires a multidisciplinary approach. It requires harmonious inputs from the Department of Child Welfare in this state, child welfare agencies of the state, non-state agencies, as well as committees and boards set up under the Juvenile Justice Act. These various bodies and functionaries have to deal with juveniles in conflict with law as well as children in need of special care, such as orphans, abandoned or destitute children, and give them proper education and training and empower them to live as responsible and committed citizens when they grow up. It is also necessary that the health of children under the protection of these bodies is properly taken care of, especially looking to the high figures of infant and child mortality in our country, poverty and malnutrition that contribute to it, and the coronavirus pandemic. Health and education are two major concerns that come to the fore when we consider child rights. In this context, I would like to quote the moving words of Nelson Mandela and Graça Machel on our promise to the world's children. They say, "We write to you as a mother and a father, as grandparents and as great-grandparents, as politicians and as activists. You are the focus of our outrage, just as you are the focus of our hopes. You are our only children, our only link to the future. Each one of you is your own person, endowed with rights, worthy of respect and dignity. Each one of you deserves to have the best possible start in life, to complete a basic education of the highest quality, to be allowed to develop your full potential and provided the opportunities for meaningful participation in your communities. And until every one of you, no matter who you are, enjoys your rights, I, Nelson, and I, Graça, will not rest. This is our promise. Please hold us to it." The fulfillment of this promise seems to become more and more difficult in these days of pandemic, coupled with prevalent conflicts all over the world, both internal and external, an era of unprecedented violence, both in scale and in viciousness. As a result, we need to have programs for child refugees, migrant children, child soldiers exposed to violence and brutality. The viciousness and unprecedented extent of prevalence of child pornography is made possible through the use of modern IT technology and the ease with which any information, photographs, etc. can be circulated to an increasing number of people. As more and more people under lockdown look at their mobiles, computers, and TVs for entertainment, more and more children are coming under threat of sexual exploitation. Yet, this is also an era of hope and idealism, where the right of every individual to lead a life with dignity is enunciated in international treaties which are often incorporated in the constitutions of countries around the world. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child 1989 received the speediest endorsement by the largest number of countries in the world. Human rights are no longer a prerogative of the adult world. Convention relating to rights of children gives also norms for a proper discharge of parental responsibilities, responsibilities of child care institutions, and of juvenile justice boards. Its core values are reflected in our Juvenile Justice Act and our constitutional provisions such as Article 15(3), Article 39(e) and F, Articles 46 and 47. These impose on the state the primary responsibility of ensuring that all of the needs of children are met and that basic human rights are fully protected. How can an appropriate legal framework be set up for enforcing the rights of children? And how can this legal framework be realized in actual practice? The enormity of the problem can be judged by the fact that according to an ILO survey, there are about 215 million child workers aged between 5 and 14 in the world. We have in our country children working in various industries such as zari industry, silk industry, carpet weaving, lock making, matchmaking, fast foods, etc. When the right to education is a fundamental right, we cannot have working children, a kind of cheap and exploitative labor. It is parents who must work and earn, and we must have the kind of economy which makes this possible so that children can be in school and not at work. Some 130 million children around the world do not or cannot at present go to school. 2/3 of these are girls. More than 15 million children have been forced to leave their homes and countries as refugees or are internally displaced. More than 1 million have been orphaned or separated from their families. There are over 1 million child prostitutes around the world. As per a UNICEF report, 30,000 children die every day from mainly preventable causes. Poverty eradication, health, and education thus become fundamental concomitants of ensuring human rights of children. Let us look at the two issues we are concerned with here: providing proper health care and education to children who are either in conflict with law or are abandoned, surrendered, or orphaned. The Juvenile Justice Act provides for observation homes and special homes for rehabilitation of juveniles in conflict with the law. Unfortunately, few states have suitable observation homes or special homes with rehabilitation programs for such juveniles. For children guilty of crimes, punishment must go hand in hand with rehabilitation. To what extent is rehabilitation possible, and with respect to what kind of crimes? A proper research is needed to decide the kind of punishment that may help a juvenile to mend his ways. Sociologists and criminologists must work together to establish where rehabilitation is possible. Accordingly, proper facilities in such homes for education and rehabilitation of juveniles in conflict with law must be provided. It is the responsibility of the state and without proper programs, the entire functioning of the juvenile justice boards is adversely affected. The creation of such boards for the trial of a child in conflict with law acknowledges the principle that a child should not be tried in an ordinary court. Some provisions of the present Act in this connection may be controversial, but basically, the members of the boards have to be sensitized to the problems faced by children and the kind of sentences which would help them to reintegrate with society. To decide whether this is possible in a given case or not, the board must have an infrastructure of counselors, psychiatrists, medical personnel, and trained social workers who can help the board in arriving at an appropriate decision. Do we have this kind of backup infrastructure? For the boards, continuous evaluation of the effect of sentences imposed by the board on juveniles is necessary to improve the effectiveness of juvenile justice boards. There is also the question of what kind of education and training can be imparted to such children to bring them back into society. Is it possible? In what kinds of cases? And what kind of punishment can help a child to reintegrate with society? Children who come before the child welfare committees are in need of psychological and emotional support. Many of them have been subjected to abuse and exploitation, sometimes even with the consent of the parents, such as children who have been exploited for begging or child labor, mentally retarded children who have been handed over to exploiters to work in factories, child brides who are too young to understand their responsibilities and shoulder motherhood, children who are abused by their families and who run away from home to escape abuse. The Act provides for children's homes and shelter homes, and we have a provision for their inspection and social audit. We need to put more life in these provisions. There are CARA guidelines for adoption of children. These need to be periodically reviewed by experts in the field to ensure that children are given properly in adoption and are safeguarded. Most of the children in need of special care, when they come to child care institutions, are malnourished. Young girls and even boys may have suffered sexual exploitation also, in addition to other forms of exploitation. All children when they enter the institution and thereafter periodically must have a health checkup. During the pandemic, health care has acquired even greater importance than before. In addition to other provisions for health care, the child care institutions must have an adequate supply of protective masks and other equipment, regular testing of children, and proper care of children who are found positive on testing. I do not know how many children's institutions can enforce social distancing. This is difficult to enforce amongst children in any case, but the older children can be educated on the importance of these measures as life-saving measures. In some ways, children in such institutions have less exposure to outside infections, but the institutions must strictly control the entry of outsiders into the institution and protect the children as far as possible from outside infection. A proper program of education needs to be drawn up for children in such institutions. Each institution will have children of different age groups with different educational needs. Educational programs will have to be suitably adjusted to meet the requirements of children with different or no educational background, children who cannot be sent to ordinary schools because they cannot fit into the regular education program, either age-wise or knowledge-wise. For example, child workers who used to work in various industries and are released have been provided in some states and by some NGOs with special bridge courses, after which they can join the regular education stream. We need to provide such special programs for children in child care institutions. The difficulties are now compounded by the pandemic. Institutions may not be able to provide to each child in its care individual access to online programs. Each will have to be given instead a program book of education so as to maintain social distancing. A child will still need access through the internet to his or her guide to solve difficulties. The state and civil society must work together to provide the necessary facilities for imparting appropriate education and skills to children. Funds must be made available so that we can educate children in need of care and protection. I do not know if any attention is paid to the mental health of children who come to such institutions. They are mentally distressed, emotionally hurt, or exploited. They need emotional support and proper guidance and counseling to remold their lives. Parents who have abandoned their children may also need counseling. Those in child care institutions must be sensitized to the emotional problems of their wards and should be able to provide guidance and counseling of experts to such children. This is where non-governmental agencies can also play an important role in providing specialized services to such children. When I was in the National Human Rights Commission, I had the opportunity of visiting some of these children's homes in different states. It was sad to see such homes lacking even in basic requirements. I hope things have improved by now. Proper nourishment is the first requirement of good health. Even this basic requirement is not always there. We need proper monitoring of every child care home. Ultimately, the best program of rehabilitation for every child would be placing the child in a family where it can be properly looked after, whether it is a foster home or the home of adoptive parents, sponsorship, or group living under an adoptive mother's care. The best of all, of course, is a return to one's own family where there is one. There is urgent need of proper monitoring mechanism to ensure that quality care is provided to children most in need of such care. The Child Rights Commission has a very major role to play in establish proper mechanisms for monitoring and supervision. The ultimate aim must be to integrate children in society as they grow up and make them responsible citizens of our country. I think it is high time we moved just from voicing ideals to practice. With your help, with the help of all who are interested and working in the area of child welfare, we can create an effective and functioning system of child care and protection for those who need it the most. Thank you.